Good morning, good afternoon, good day, no matter what time you're watching me. Welcome to Mamlakak Broadcast Network, where we contrast worldly truth with kingdom truth, with each the real truth. Welcome to the new health bulletin. My name is Ida Sirino Lee. I'm a health coach and a holistic health practitioner that been in the health field for over 28 years. I started as a nurse, then I went as a lab technician and also as a medical assistant. So now I'm going to be talking today about insulin resistant. I know that every single time when you hear the word insulin resistant, the first thing that you think about is diabetes. But do you know that diabetes is a symptom of insulin resistant? Insulin resistant happens way before, even decades before you get diabetes. So diabetes is just one of the symptoms of insulin resistant. Okay? So, producer, can you put the PowerPoint? I have a PowerPoint so you can have all the information. Please take care of it. Take pictures of the slides so you can get all the information. And I want to give you a disclaimer. Remember that I'm here to give you information so you can make informed decisions about your health. Okay, and you can advocate about yourself and about your health when you go to your doctor. But for no reason, okay, stop any medication. For no reason, do anything like that, because most likely the medication that you're taking is sustaining your life right now. Unless you start doing some changes in your lifestyle and working with a coach or any other health practitioner, then you are able to, with the doctor instruction, reduce or remove any medication. So don't remove any medication. This is just information for you to be able to make more correct and precise decisions when regarding your health, okay? So insulin resistance is dangerous for your health. Why is insulin resistance dangerous for your health? Because insulin resistance is the root cause of many chronic diseases. Okay, there's many diseases that are caused because of insulin resistance. And insulin resistance happened years before you can even have any symptoms. They call insulin resistance the silent killer because you don't feel it. Many years you are walking with insulin resistant and you don't have any symptoms, you don't have any pain, you don't have anything annoying you. You're walking like nothing happened. And even when you do blood tests or the regular blood tests that they do in the medical field, everything look normal. Test results look normal. So you don't even realize that you're walking with an issue. Why is that? Because we always take care of the symptoms and forget to research for the root cause. We are the type of people that, let's say you have an alarm in your house for gas leak, and the alarm is sounding, and the sounding of the alarm is a symptom. And instead of you figure out what is causing the alarm to turn on, we go and turn off the alarm, remove the battery so it doesn't annoy us anymore, and we don't do any research about what it is that it's leaking, or if it is a fire alarm, what is causing the fire. No, we don't search on none of that. We just keep the alarm off so it doesn't annoy you, so it doesn't bother us. Okay, and that's exactly what we do with our body when we take medication. We just turning off the alarm. Shutting up, muting our body, because symptoms is the way that our body talk to us and let us know, here, something is wrong. If we want to be able to be CEOs of our health and take control of our health, we need to be able to give ourselves, which is the smallest unit of our body, everything that it needs. Let's pretend you are a company and you are the CEO, and your cells are your employees, and your organs are the equipment, and the different departments, okay, are the systems are the different departments, and your brain is your human resources. Okay, so the human resources want to make sure that the employee have all the equipment, that have all the things that they need in order for them to work in the highest healing potential or make the product that the body is supposed to make. In our case, we're talking about health, so the product is optimal health. But if you don't give the cells what it need, then the cells turn into tissues and damage those tissues, and then damage the organs, and then those organs and systems are not communicating properly, and disease is happening. But if you just take something that is going to calm down the symptoms and do nothing about the research and search what is the root cause that is causing and then fix that so that you can reverse diseases. There are many diseases out there that can be reversed if we just look for the root cause and fix the root cause. And that another thing is that our body is not different parts. Everything is correlated. Okay, it's not that because, like, for example, when they think about insulin resistance or they think of pre-diabetes or diabetes, what the first thing they think of your pancreas and the sugar levels. But insulin resistance and diabetes is a multi-organ, multi-system kind of disease, involves many things. But the only thing that they treat is your pancreas and the number of your sugar level. Okay, let's go to the next slide, producer. So what the statistics says, the statistics according to the CDC said that 40% of adults above 18 years old and 40% of children, my goodness, children suffer of insulin resistance. But even though functional medicine says that even higher than that, because since we're not testing for insulin resistance, we find out that we have insulin resistance once a doctor tells us that we have prediabetes. And that's when we decide, okay, that we have some insulin resistant problem. But that insulin resistance been happening inside of you silently for years, even decades. Okay, even decades. Now, back then, when you have the baby boomers, usually they will get the insulin resistant and something will not develop until they were 60s and 70s. Then they came the X generation, that's my generation, that usually will find out that they have some problem with insulin resistance in their 40s and 50s. Then we had the millennials, okay, that the millennials will find out that they have insulin issues because at the age of 20, late 20s, early 20s, and now the new generation Z is we're having children that are having insulin resistant problems and sugar problems. Why is that? Because of the quality of food and the lack of activity. Now, I think my generation, maybe even the older millennials, were the last generation that went outside to play and play with the dirt and run and do things, because the new generation have a sedentary life in front of a computer, in front of a phone all day long, not moving anything. And then the food quality from now to 100 years before, even the healthy stuff is not as healthy anymore as it was before. Now it is imperative to get some supplementation because the foods, because of the depletion on the earth, okay, and when they grow the crops and stuff like that, then now the food are not getting the same amount of nutrients that it used to get before. So earlier, the results of that insulin resistant in their body, okay, is becoming and manifesting into diseases and into issues early in life. Okay, it says that 70% of USA individuals are overweight or obese, underlying insulin resistance. If you are overweight, even if you are 10 pounds overweight, you have insulin resistance. Because when I show you the mechanism of how insulin resistance works, is the main cause of gaining fat. Is the main cause why you gain fat. Okay, so 70% so that means that 70% will turn diabetic and pre-diabetic if they don't do nothing about it. And even 25% of non-overweight individuals have silent insulin resistance. Why? Underweight. Maybe they have an underlying issue about hyperthyroidism, that they're not gaining weight, but they still having the issue with the insulin resistance. Maybe they're type 1 diabetics or type 1.5 diabetic, that we're going to be talking a little later what that means. And that's the reason why they're still slim, but they're still having a problem. That means 70% of the population, that is more than half of the population in the United States, is overweight. That means that half of these people are all suffering insulin resistant and they're doing nothing about it. And the way our medical establishment is treating this is just walking you through disease. So finally, at one point or another, you end up pre-diabetic, diabetic, and all the other diseases that insulin resistance can come. Let's go to the next slide. So in the next slide, we're going to explain what is insulin resistant. So insulin resistant, this is what happens. Your cells, in your fat cells, your muscle cells, your liver cells, okay, they have the cells have a cell wall, and in the cell wall, they have pathways. They're like garages, okay? The insulin that is secreted by your pancreas is located under your liver in the right-hand side of your upper abdomen, okay? So your pancreas, the basal cells in your pancreas will secrete insulin, and insulin is like the key that goes into the cell, open those pathways, and then the glucose can go in, the sugar can go in. Then once the sugar is inside the cell, okay, the sugar, the mitochondria, which is an energy powerhouse of the cell, which is a little organ inside the cell that will make energy that is called ATP. And that's the energy that allow the cell to do all the work that it need to be do to maintain you alive, to get that organ to work properly, get you to breathing, get you to move, get you to run and stuff like that. You have to make enough energy to do all these things. Now, when you have insulin resistance for some reason that we're going to find out when we talk about the root cause of insulin resistance, those pathways are damaged. They either damage or the cell don't want any more glucose. Because it says, okay, I'm not doing any exercise, I'm not moving, I'm not doing anything, I don't need that much glucose anymore. So it starts closing the pathways. So let's say that before it had 10 pathways open, okay? Now it have only 5 pathways open. So you can only get just a little bit of glucose in, and then the other glucose stay there. So what do the insulin does with that glucose that is not doing nothing? It take it back to the liver and it convert it into fat. It goes back to the adipose tissue and to the liver and convert it into fat. Okay? And what kind of fat? Triglycerides, cholesterol, and the adipose tissue, you know, that little fat, that visceral fat that you get around the organs, that's the kind of fat that insulin resistance causes. So the problem here, usually when you go to the doctor, they treat the pancreas, let the pancreas produce more insulin so that it can take all that sugar out. But they're not correcting the cells. What is bothering the cell? That the cell is not taking that insulin so that they can take that glucose and use it properly, so the body, the cell have the energy that it needs to do all the processes that that particular cell was created to do. Okay? So and that doesn't stop there. Let's go to the next slide, producer. So what is the cycle of the insulin, or the insulin, or insulin resistant? That what happens is that you eat your food, now your sugar's in the blood, then the pancreas get knotted, and it says, okay, I need to make some insulin. It releases the insulin take the sugar to the cells. The cells doesn't want the sugar anymore. Okay, but since the blood work is still high in sugar, then the pancreas try to make more insulin to try to calm down on those. And then when it cannot take it to the cells anymore, what happened? Now because the cell didn't get enough glucose, then now the cell is it's not making enough energy, so that's why you feel tired and fatigued and like you can do nothing, okay? And then the insulin will take those glucose and store in the liver and in the adipose tissue and make fat, and the cycle continues and continues and continues. So what happens is that this is happening in your body when the body can still get into a point of balance. Okay, before you're diagnosed with diabetes or prediabetes, this is happening for years, sometimes decades. Okay, and the body can compensate for a while, but when you get into a point where it can compensate for a while by taking all the sugar out of the blood and taking it into fat, when it cannot go to a cell, but it get into a point where the amount of blood the amount of sugar in the blood is so much that it can no longer compensate. And you still have high blood sugars, and then you probably get diagnosed with prediabetes or with diabetes. And that prediabetes, I don't know, I don't understand that term, because that's already diabetes. Okay, you're not pre-pregnant. When you get a pregnancy test, you don't get a pregnancy test that tell you that you're pre-pregnant. You know, or you're not pre-fat. You know, you either overweight or not. You know what I'm saying? So I don't understand that. Once the sugar is out of level, okay, you're already a diabetic. Okay, so let's go to the next cycle. So what people don't understand is, like I was telling you before, when you go to the doctor and all they test to see what is the problem with, if you have problem with your sugar, is your fasting blood sugar. They check your hemoglobin A1C, which is a test that determines what's the percentage of how your sugar has been in the last 3 months. That way they know if their medication that they give you is working or not. Okay, or if they are newly diagnosing you with pre-diabetic, then or diabetes, then those are the two numbers they use. But they never check insulin levels. And fasting insulin levels will show right away that you have insulin resistant even before you ever close to pre-diabetes or diabetes. Because what happened is, like a cycle that I was telling you before, as you need to make more insulin that the body supposed to secrete, when the fasting blood sugar is higher, then it will show that there's some insulin resistance happening, and then you're gonna be able to correct that before it becomes pre-diabetes or diabetes. But because they don't do that test, I went for my physical a month ago, and I had to actually argue with my doctor to do me the fasting insulin. Well, why you need this? Oh, the insurance not gonna pay for it, and she's arguing with me about me getting my insulin levels done. Can you imagine that? Imagine that. So what they need to understand, that insulin resistance is a multi-system and multi-organ disease. The brain communicate with the body to see how many glucose you need. The gallbladder and the liver, the liver process that sugar that is not being used, and also whenever you are in a starvation, it will create glucose for the body to use. The microbiome is your gut is digesting the food, and it have to do with controlling the inflammation or not. Because if you're inflamed, it's going to cause more insulin resistant. Your adrenal glands have to do with your stress, because they can release cortisol. The cortisol, depending on how your adrenal glands are releasing the hormones, is how much of the sugar you're going to be able to use. Because if you're stressed, they're going to close all those pathways, because they want the energy in other places of the body. They want you to run after that lion that's running after you. Okay, so when you're under stress, you're causing even more insulin resistant. Your thyroid controls your metabolism. Your metabolism is how sugar gets into your body and make energy. So if you're having problems, if you have hypothyroidism, you're going to have problems when it comes to insulin resistant. Your immune system, when you see those damaged cells, they are damaged because of all the chemicals that you take, because it's damaged because of maybe even insulin resistant. When it's damaged, it's going to even cause more damage into the cells, damaging more of the pathways, and more insulin resistant. Adipocytes. What happened with the adipocytes? The adipocytes it's supposed to release leptin, and leptin is what tells your body, okay, I have enough energy stored. Enough fat stored, we don't need to store anymore. But the thing is that the same pathways that the insulin use, the leptin use. So if you become insulin resistant, you're also going to become leptin resistant. So it's not telling your body that you have enough energy. So that's why you're hungry all the time. Okay, the skeletal muscle, the muscles are like the sponges. The muscles are the one that need all are the cells that need most of the energy. Because the muscles are the one that contract and relax and help you move, and do the things that the body have to do, run and walk and move and stuff like that. And it needs that. And when it's not working right, then you're going to have some problem with insulin resistant. And then the pancreas is the one that is making the insulin. And if you're making too much, it's going to make your body resistant. If you're making too little, then your blood sugar is going to be high. So either way, it's still... They're all together working for the regulation and balance of sugar metabolism. And when one of those things are not working right, that can be one of the causes why you have insulin resistance. But the doctor will only treat the pancreas. Let the pancreas make more insulin, and let me give him more insulin if you cannot with the pills, like give you injection of insulin. But please lose weight. Well, how are you going to tell me to lose weight if you give me something that is making me fat and not correcting why I'm needing more? Okay, let's go to the next slide. So what are the symptoms of insulin resistance? Some of the symptoms that you can have from insulin resistance is insomnia, problem sleeping. Sometimes you cannot get to sleep or you wake up too many times in the night. Impaired brain function, fatigue after meals, mood swing, brain fog, memory loss. And this about the mood swing, brain fog, and memory loss happen more often, especially to women when they go to premenopause and menopause and postmenopause. You can get those symptoms even more severe. Sugar cravings after meals, because of course, if the sugar is not getting in the cell is not getting all the nutrients that it needs, okay? Because it doesn't have the energy even to process all the other nutrients that are coming throughout your food. So the cell is saying, okay, I'm not satisfied, so you get more hungry and you get more sugar cravings. Chronic inflammation, if you get chronic inflammation because you have an infection in your body, an underlying infection that you don't know yet, or there's damage to the cells, and the immune system recognizes that something that doesn't belong there and attack it. Okay, it's going to cause inflammation. Inflammation is going to block the pathways, and that's why you're going to have insulin resistant. So that's another symptoms when you have chronic inflammation. How you feel that? Joint pains, swelling, headaches. That's some of the things that you feel with chronic inflammation. Frequent urination, because the kidneys is trying to clean up, all that sugar that you have in your system. So it's trying to clean it up. So what it does, it pee it out so that you can clean up all that sugar. Difficulty exercising, because you're so sore and you have so much pain in your joints, you cannot exercise. But when you do exercise, you can feel the improvement. Another thing that happens is, those skin tags that people get in their necks, sometimes in their fingers, skin tags, and also the darker areas in the neck and everywhere that you fold, whatever your body fold, like in the inner elbows or behind the knees, by the ankles, all the areas that get darker, and that's called acanthosis nigricans. Also, and then impaired metabolism, you cannot lose weight. Why can you lose weight? Because you have that cycle, insulin resistant, because the insulin cannot get the sugar inside the cells, that you convert it into fat. And then it convert it into fat, and because the leptin cannot tell the brain, hey brain, I don't need no more storage of fat, so don't get hungry anymore, then you continue. But then people say, okay, but then I'm going to take the GLP-1 injections like Ozempic and things like that, because that's going to stop my hunger. Yeah, that's going to stop my hunger because you're eating less food. It might lower a little bit your insulin resistant, but it's still not attacking the cause of the insulin resistant. So the moment that you stop taking the injection, now you have even more problem with your weight, because first of all, it take away your muscle, and the muscle is the one that take all the sugar. So you're losing muscle when you're losing weight with the GLP-1s. Second of all, do not correct in the leptin problem. So you still have more leptin in the system, more leptin resistance. So your fat cells is going to still receiving more fat, because I don't need it. Okay, and your metabolism is going to be slow after you stop those pills. So it's still not correcting the root cause. We don't have an Ozempic deficiency. We don't have a metformin deficiency. We don't have a glipizide deficiency. Okay, we just have a deficiency of taking care of our body and giving ourselves what they need in order for it to work in optimal health. That's our deficiency. Okay, another things that can happen also is PCOS. That's when you get cysts in your ovaries. And what do you think that they give a woman when they're in PCOS? Metformin. What metformin do? It push your pancreas to make even more insulin, to cause even more insulin resistant. It's supposed to help also a little bit with the insulin resistant, but because it's working in both ways, okay, not to mention the side effects that you get, it's still prolongating the situation. So you can get also PCOS, you get high blood sugar, you get hypertension. Why you get hypertension? Because now all that the extra glucose that stay inside the blood cells, it will make the inside of the blood sticky and hard. And then the inflammation will make it harder. You will get arteriosclerosis. Now you need more pressure to pump the blood inside the cells. And because your glucose is turning into fat, then you're going to have high triglycerides, you're going to have high cholesterol, and you're going to suffer a fatty liver. Okay? So those are symptoms that happens when you have insulin resistance that people do not recognize, because before all this thing happened, you probably don't have a symptom yet that you can recognize, because fatigue can be for so many things, and you might not think that it's insulin resistant. That many of the symptoms sometimes can be for so many other things that people do not realize because they don't get examined. And the tests that they do in standard medical care do not address insulin resistance. They wait until you are pre-diabetic, because remember, they're looking for disease. They're looking for disease. They're not looking to prevent disease. They're looking for disease. They're looking for something else to give you medication for, or do a procedure for, do a surgery for. Okay? They're not looking for, so when they give you a result and they tell you that everything is okay and you're still feeling bad, but all the numbers are right, that doesn't mean that you're still good. Okay? So what are hidden root cause of insulin resistance? Some of the hidden root cause of insulin resistance are infections. You can get, bacterial infection, parasite infection, viral infection. That's one of the things that happen with people that during COVID. If they have insulin resistant, then they will have, the infection will be even worse. Then we have chemicals that are called diabetogens and obesogens. Those are chemicals that block the insulin pathways, causing the insulin resistant. And obesogens, those are chemicals that will retain the fat. So you're trying to lose weight and it will retain the fat. It will retain the fat. And that fat can be blocking even the pathways also that the insulin need to get in. Okay? So those are chemicals that do that. And then many toxins, the toxins that comes into your body, they create more free radicals and create more damage into your cell. And by creating damage, it will cause the insulin resistance. Inflammation will cause the inflammation. And with inflammation, you don't know what comes first, whether the insulin resistant, because insulin resistance can cause more inflammation, but inflammation that was caused by something else will cause insulin resistant. A sedentary lifestyle, if you are not moving, if you're not burning, if those calves and thighs are not moving, which are the bigger muscles that we have, okay? And you know that I told you that muscles are like sponges, and when it comes to the sugar and they're not able to retain the sugar, then you're going to be having insulin resistant. Food sensitivities, allergies, because the allergies cause damage into your cells. They cause reactions into your cells that are not allowing the insulin to come into the cells. That's another issue when you don't know what your allergies are and food sensitivities. Sometimes there are foods, like somebody can eat a banana and their sugar will still level, and somebody can eat a banana and have a big spike. So you need to know what are the foods that cause that big spike of sugar in your body so that you can avoid it, or eat it in a different way on a different quantity so you don't get those sugar spikes. Okay? And even with the sugar spikes within the normal range. Okay? Another thing that also cause insulin resistance is one of the hidden causes is gut dysbiosis. When you have an unhealthy microbiome, the bacteria, the good bacteria that we have in the microbiome, they do a lot of things when it comes to our metabolism, to our mood, to our digestion. So that when they are not working right, they also cause insulin resistance. Hypothyroidism, because the thyroid control the metabolism. If we have hypothyroidism, we're going to have problem with insulin resistance. Sleep deprivation. If you're not sleeping properly, you're not allowing the cells to clean up at night. Okay? That's not happening. So because it's not happening, the cells are working overtime. And working overtime, they cause damage, and the damage is going to cause damage to the pathways, and that's why insulin resistance is happening. Chronic stress. Chronic stress is going to increase your cortisol, and that sugar is going to go to other places, not where it needs to be. And that's going to cause high sugar. That's going to cause insulin resistance. Some medication like glucocorticoids, for example, like prednisone. When you're in prednisone, it will increase your sugar. There's some antibiotics also that can increase your sugar. Diabetic medication can increase insulin resistance because, like I tell you, some of the medication, like getting insulin injections, you're getting more insulin, and the insulin anyway is not getting into the cell. So they're going to convert into fat, and that is going to create inflammation, and the insulin resistance is going to continue. So that's another reason why we have insulin resistant. And many other medications also cause that. Mold and mycotoxins. If you have mold, and when I'm talking, what kind of mold I'm talking here? The mold that is made because of water leaks in your home. And usually you find the molds in your home, in schools, in hotels. Sometimes you don't see it. It can be inside the air conditioner vents, and can be in the ceiling. Sometimes you don't see it, but if you see it, it's needed to be clear and clean before somebody can stay there, because that can cause insulin resistance and also lung disease and many other things. And then oxidative stress. And what is oxidative stress? Have you ever seen an apple when you cut it and you open it and then it's exposed to the oxygen, and what happened? It get brown, it got rotten. You know, the same thing happened to our cells. When we metabolize food and metabolize energy and everything like that, it creates a byproduct called free radicals. It's a negative ion that damages our cells. One that damages cell, it damages the pathways where the insulin need to come in. And here we go with insulin resistance. So those are the root cause. So when we address all these things, then we can reverse insulin resistance. Okay, let's go to the next one. So what diseases can be caused by insulin resistance? That's why having insulin resistance is dangerous, because it can be causing many, many diseases. People only focus into diabetes, but that's the beginning. That's just like one thing out of the many things that can happen once you know that insulin resistance is happening into your body. So the first thing that can happen is diabetes type 1. Diabetes type 1 is when because of insulin resistance, maybe you have a problem with the pancreas manufacturing insulin. And that's why people with diabetes type 1 needs insulin. Most of the people that have diabetes type 1 usually get it as a child or a teen, the diabetes type 1, because it can be a malfunction or genetic growth of the vascular cells in the pancreas are not working right and not producing insulin, or it can be an autoimmune situation that causes the pancreas not to make insulin. And that's type 1 diabetes, but that's only 10% of all diabetics. Okay. Now, type 2 is the other 90% of all diabetic. And type 2, we earn it like we earn our paycheck. It's because of our lifestyle and the way that we're eating and the way that we are handling stress and the way that we're not exercising and all this stuff. That's the key why we're getting the diabetes type 2. So that's another thing that it costs. And then we have diabetes 1.5. What is diabetes 1.5? Meaning that you started with diabetes type 2, not making enough insulin, but at some point, or making too much insulin, but at some point, the pancreas got tired or damaged for all the inflammation and all the insulin resistance and everything else, and now it's not making insulin anymore. But you are older, okay? And probably it's caused by some autoimmune situation. And usually the people that have type 1.5 type diabetes are usually slim, because it's usually it's caused by an autoimmune situation. Then you get the people that get the prediabetes. That is when prediabetes is when your blood sugar, your fasting blood sugars is between 100 and 110, and your hemoglobin A1C is between 5.7 to 6.4. So you have a hemoglobin A1C that is 5.7 to 6.4, you pre-diabetic. Well, that's what the medical say, but I say you're already diabetic. You just have it under control. Or, not under control, but in better than if you have full blown. That, in other words, you can probably handle it without medication if you change your diet and lifestyle and all that stuff. Then that will be pre-diabetic. But once you have more than 110 fasting blood sugar and more than 6.4, you have 6.5 and above, then you're already a full-blown type 2 diabetes. And diabetes is, I know that they put it as a disease, and that's the way so they can charge insurance and they can put in all this medication. But diabetes is a symptom of insulin resistant. Okay. Then you can have gestational diabetes, that when you already have insulin resistant, then you get diabetes in pregnancy, just in the pregnancy. Also, insulin resistant increase your cancers. Also, I talked to you already about the coronary artery disease that cause the plaque and the stickiness in the arteries, and then it will cause high blood pressure, which is hypertension. Okay, it will cause obesity, because the cells, the insulin have to take those glucose into the liver and into the adipose tissue to cause to make fat, to turn into fat. So now that, because of that, you are obese. Because of that, you have a fatty liver. Because of that, you have a high cholesterol, and that can cause PCOS, problems with your reproductive system. And so, meaning that insulin resistance can be a root cause of your infertility. Okay, insulin resistance can be a root cause of your infertility, because if the cells in your ovaries are insulin resistant and not getting the energy that they need to produce the hormones that they need to produce and make the eggs viable in your ovaries and all that stuff, then you can be having a problem with fertility. And it might regulate your period, make your uterus thicker, might cause fibroids and cysts. And all that can be issues when it comes to fertility. So having insulin resistance can be one of the root cause of your infertility. Then Alzheimer's, which they call it the diabetes type 3, which is insulin resistant in your brain. Okay, Alzheimer's. And neuropathy, that's one of the first things that happen to people that have diabetics. Neuropathy, that means that the nerves are not being able to do their job properly and get the feeling that you need to have. So that also causes, and then they can cause blindness, and then kidney failure, because yes, the kidney is trying to take the sugar out, but while it's taking the sugar out, that sugar particles are too big for the kidneys and causing damage into the kidneys. So the more the kidneys have to eliminate sugar because you have too much in your system, the more damage are you causing to your kidneys. And then usually when that happens, you already have heart disease, you already have hypertension, that also causes damage to your kidneys. That's why many people that end up with diabetes end up with hypertension, end up with heart disease, and end up with kidney failure. Okay, then retinopathy, damage in the eyes. And then erectile dysfunction. Guys, men that I listen, if you having fatigue and your muscles and you're losing muscle and you're losing testosterone, you're going to have erectile dysfunction. Remember that the penis is a muscle. Okay? So if it's not getting that enough glucose, that enough energy to do what it's supposed to do, then you're going to have erectile dysfunction. So if this is not enough to make you think, okay, do I have insulin resistance? What can I do right now? Please tell me what I need to do in order to stop this. Nothing else will. Okay, nothing else will. Let's go to the next. Okay, so remember that I'm talking about leptin. Leptin is a hormone that tells your brain, okay, I don't need to store any more fat. So this is different because people confuse this with GLP-1. GLP-1 is telling the brain, I don't need any more food at the moment. You eating a meal and you get full faster. Or you are full, I don't need to eat. That's what the GLP-1 does. And let me tell you something, GLP-1 is a hormone that our body makes. The L cells in our intestine made the GLP. So we don't need fake one because we just need to activate the production and improve the production of a GLP-1 inside of us naturally. Okay. Now the leptin is the one that tells, okay, the brain, okay, I have enough fat. We don't need to store any more fat. But because it cannot communicate because of the leptin resistant, okay, then you keep storing more fat. You keep storing more fat. You can still, instead of using that glucose because the cells cannot use it because you have insulin resistant, you're still storing more fat. So insulin resistance directly promotes leptin resistance. Chronically high insulin levels increase fat tissue inflammation. So now increasing inflammation that making insulin resistant worse, which block leptin signals as well, So it making being overweight and trying to lose weight impossible. Okay. So people that like to criticize people that are overweight out there, maybe they don't have any control over it because their body is so diseased with insulin resistant, okay, and leptin resistant, that's the reason why no matter what they do, they're not losing the weight. Okay, so low leptin and or leptin resistant is it causes low TSH, which means that it's also is related and have functions with your thyroid, function with your hormones, function with your sex hormones. Okay, leptin also play a role in dopamine and in sugar cravings, and leptin control body weight, hunger, satiety, and metabolism. So leptin have a lot to do when it comes to the metabolism of your body, the weight loss capabilities of your body. Okay, so it's important for us to make sure that we take under control the insulin resistance, so that same way we can take control of our leptin resistance, so we can control our weight. Okay, and also the leptin can do their job when it comes to the hormones and the thyroid that it's supposed to be doing. Okay, let's go to the next one. So what is glycemic variability? Okay, glycemic, if you see the chart here, when you have your sugar going up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down, even if it is within normal, let's say within normal is 70, from 70 to 100 is normal sugar. But if one day you have 70, the next day you have 99, and the next day you have 69, and the next day you have 92, and it's going from one stream to the other, not even the next day, it's happening in the same day, up and down, up and down, up and down. That variability of the sugar is causing more damage to your cell if you have it 90 all day long. Okay, it's causing more damage to your cell than if you had 90 overall. So how we can fix this glycemic variability? We can fix it by getting a continuous glucose monitor. I don't know if you've seen the commercials of the person that put the machine right here in the arms. Okay, that's a continuous glucose monitor, a CGM. Okay, that way you can see what foods are the ones that are causing you, or what situations in your life are causing your sugar to go up, even when it is within normal, and you having that type of variability. Okay, it causes more damage into your cells and more insulin resistance than if you have it all in the same, like the second graph, like the second graph at the bottom, that the high and lows are not that much. So what happens when you're having glycemic variability? It happens that you get oxidative stress, which means that you're producing more free radicals, causing more damage into your cells and causing more insulin resistance. It also causes endothelial dysfunction. Endothelium is the layer inside the lining inside the arteries and veins. Okay, and what they do, it causes damage to that, causing problem with relaxation, and they will increase high blood pressures. So that means that insulin resistance is the main cause, or one of the most important root cause of high blood pressure. Okay, if you're having high blood pressure, if you're having atherosclerosis, most likely is because you have an uncontrolled insulin resistance, even when it is within when the numbers in the normal range. So meaning that you have a normal high hemoglobin A1C and a normal blood sugar doesn't mean that you don't have insulin resistance. It doesn't mean that everything is good and dandy. Okay. And the last thing that it causes systemic inflammation, spiking and crashes. It causes more inflammatory processes, increasing the cytokines, increasing blood cells and platelets. So that's what happened when COVID happened, and people already have some insulin resistant, and they were having some glycemic variability. The virus itself spike already the cytokines to come into the cells, but then because of the insulin resistance and everything, they spike it even more, and that will cause damage to the lungs and cause death. Okay, so that's why this is very important. The only way that you can figure it out on your own, about how to control your glycemic variability is if you make the purchase on investing on yourself and getting that CGM machine, the continuous glucose monitor, so that you can see, and then not only the machine, but also the program that comes with it, that you can have it in your phone, so that way you can see how your sugar is doing and what are the foods that increase your sugar, what are the foods that are not increasing your sugar. Okay, so that's very important. Okay, so the starting point that we have to reverse insulin resistance and diabetes type 2 is getting comprehensive testing to discover the root cause. I mentioned to you before that regular doctors, they only do these two tests. They do the hemoglobin A1C and the fasting blood sugar. They don't check anything else. But if they were to check all these tests that I'm mentioning right here, not only they're going to find the insulin resistance, but we're going to find out which organs. Remember that I told you it's a multi-system, multi-organ kind of condition, of issue or problem. Okay, then they can see what it need to be fixed, and then that way you can target exactly that, correct it, and then you'll be able to correct your insulin resistance, your pre-diabetes, and your diabetes, or any other condition that came as a result of having insulin resistant. So the test that you need is your fasting blood sugar. Of course, you need your hemoglobin A1C. You need your fasting insulin. CMP is a comprehensive metabolic panel. That test is going to check your liver. It's going to check your kidneys. It's going to check your electrolytes, and also it's going to check your the blood sugar as well. And then you got the CBC. The CBC is going to give you the blood count, white blood cells, red blood cells, the different types of white blood cells. With that, you can tell even when it is within normal limits, you can see anything trending. Does it trending to have more neutrophils? Neutrophils is the type of white cells that increase when you have some kind of bacterial infection. Maybe your body's handling the infection. That's why you don't need antibiotic or need a but because of that trending, it's causing insulin resistance. So that way they can see it. You need a full thyroid panel to make sure that your thyroid is working properly. Okay, you need a full lipid panel. That way they know if you have insulin resistance, if your triglycerides are high, if your LDH or your full cholesterol is high. And then you need your CRP, which is C-reactive protein, but you need that specific one that is for cardiac. This one measure inflammation in the arteries. Okay, so it's HS-CRP cardiac one. And then you got homocysteine. Homocysteine not only going to tell you about inflammation, it's also going to tell you if you are methylating your nutrients properly, so they can get into the cell properly, so they can help do the whole process that the sugar and the insulin need to do. And then the fructoxamine and the glucomar is a test that let you know how is your glycemic variability. And then you have the test of cortisol. The cortisol is going to tell you, and you want the cortisol in urine or saliva, not in blood, because when you do the cortisol in blood, you're looking for a tumor or something in the adrenal gland. But when we're doing it in urine, we are measuring the stress levels, and we are also measuring your circadian rhythm to see when in the day are you having more cortisol. That way we can give you some adaptogens and things like that will help to keep that cortisol into levels so that you don't get that much inflammation and you don't get the insulin resistant. Uric acid, also the accumulation of acid in your joints and things like that will also cause insulin resistance. Low vitamin D also cause insulin resistance. Then we're going to check leptin. If you have leptin resistance, most likely 99.99% you have insulin resistance. Then the last four tests that we're going to see here, the insulin antibody, the CYP peptides, the GAD65 antibodies, and the pancreatitis antibodies, is to make sure that there is not an autoimmune process attacking the pancreas that is causing the issue with the insulin resistance. Or the pancreas by itself is making too many insulin, and that's why the cells cannot take it all because it's making too much by itself. Or there's a problem, you have an autoimmune problem that is attacking the basal cells, and you're not making enough insulin, and that's why you type 1.5. Okay, so these are the tests that we need to do in order to start reversing insulin resistant pre-diabetes and diabetes. If we don't know what's going on in your body, then there's a problem. And the problem is that when doctors look at the results, Okay, what they're looking at the normal range. If you ever look at your results, you know that they have what is the parameter. Well, this is the cholesterol, the white blood cells, whatever. Then they have your results that if they're normal, they're black, but if they're normal, if they are normal, they are red and flag high or low. Okay, and then you have the range. The range is what tell you what is within normal. Okay, do you know how they get that range? They get that range by seeing the population, how many in the population uh, uh, test this particular parameter, okay, and get symptoms of disease between this range and that range, and from there they get what normal range it is. So most of the people that are getting tested, either they're getting tested on a physical or they're getting tested because they're sick. Okay, so we're getting a range of a test where the foundation is sick people. So that's why when you go to a functional medicine doctor, they're not looking at that. They're looking at what the optimal numbers to be. Like, for example, insulin levels. Insulin levels tell you they usually tell you that the normal is the insulin level is between 7 and 15, something like that is what is normal. But optimal, so you don't have insulin resistance, is 5. So the white blood cells, might say that is normal, but when we see that it's trending into the higher end, that means that it's not optimal. Some kind of infection is going through, but it's not a disease yet. So that's why they mark it normal. So whenever they're reading, the doctor is reading to you, if they don't see any red, they say everything is normal. They don't go into the specific or every parameter. Okay? So now what we can do, let's say once you have the test, then you know exactly what you can do in order for you to reverse the disease. But what we can do now, what can you do right now in order for you to reverse the disease? So the first thing you need to do is to sleep 8 hours a night so that you can leave your body to rest. I mean, the body can be able to repair, get rid of all the senescent cells that are not working, repair the one that can be repaired, lower the insulin levels, and all that stuff. So we need to sleep 8 hours a night. We need to make sure that we are sleeping in a dark environment, in a cool environment. They say that you're supposed to keep the temperature in 67 at night when you're sleeping, that cool environment, so you can get some deep sleep. If you need help with that, you can create an environment where you put some lavender in the room, you take a hot bath, Epsom salt, so you can relax. You can have a tea, and have that tea like ashwagandha or valerian or chamomile that help you relax, and you have a routine where you say your gratefulness and you pray, and you can put some noise, calming noise that's going to help you sleep. But it's important for that so you can relax and clean, and also you can have normal circadian rhythms and normal cortisol. The second thing that you need to do is that you need to keep a healthy microbiome. That means that you need to eat a lot of fiber. You need to eat a lot of fermented food. You need to have some probiotics, omega-3 that will help with the inflammation inside the intestines. You need to also do outdoor activities so you can be exposed to some of those good bacteria as well. And you need digestive enzymes if you're having problems with digesting issues. Okay, so that way you can get most of the nutrients out of the food easier. Okay, when it comes to diet, you want to, if you already know that you have insulin resistant or pre-diabetes, and of course, if you already have diabetes, you need to stop sugar, cut sugar, okay? No gluten, because gluten increases inflammation. Increased inflammation is going to increase insulin resistance. No dairy, because dairy also causes a lot of phlegm and causes inflammation. Eliminate all sensitivity foods. So, if you notice that something cause you allergy, cause you indigestion, make you sensitive, then you don't want to eat those things. And you want to eat plenty of veggies, plenty of veggies that are high in fiber. You want to eat proteins. You want to eat healthy fats. And let me tell you, the order that you eat your food also have a lot to do on how you can control that big spike. Because if you eat all the sugar stuff first, you eat your carbohydrate first, you're going to spike your food. You're going to spike your sugar levels even higher. But if you eat your fiber first, meaning your green veggies first, okay, then you eat your protein, okay, and healthy fat, and then last you eat your complex carbohydrate, which would be like a sweet potato or quinoa, squash, things like that. Then the spike is going to be less because you're eating the sugar less, and you have a protein and healthy fats and all the things that need to be metabolized that might use that particular food. right away. Okay, so that's the way. If you are diabetic or pre-diabetic or you're concerned about insulin resistance, that's the way that you want to eat your food. You want to eat your veggies first, green veggies first, your protein and healthy fat second, last your complex carbohydrate. Okay, and you never want to have protein by itself with a complex carbohydrate. You can have protein by itself with the fiber and the veggies, but never by itself with the complex carbohydrates. Okay, and then exercise. When it comes to exercise, you want to do a strength exercise because that means that you are making that muscles use more sugar, more of the glucose. So you want to do a strength exercise. One way to avoid, let's say you had a high carbohydrate meal and you want to avoid the spike, then do a walk, a 10-minute walk after every meal. I call that a digestive walk, a 10-minute walk after every meal. And if you cannot walk outside, then do a couple of sets of squats, because the thighs are the bigger muscles. So if you do squats, you're going to use more of those glucose that you consume. So that's one way to control the sugar spike. Okay, you want to make sure that you do more resistant exercises so you can move your muscle, but you want to control. You want to be moving all day, so walking all day, do your 10,000 steps as you possibly can. But don't overdo, especially if you're over 40 and you're a woman and you're in menopause or premenopause. You don't want to overdo in cardio, and you don't want to overdo also on any exercise, because when you go beyond what the body can handle, then you cause stress to the body and you increase the cortisol and you increase the insulin resistance. Okay? So, by itself, the exercise is not, you need to make sure that you're doing the right amount for your body that you can do. Okay, then you want to make sure that you do a stress reduction to control that cortisol. So things that you can do to control that stress is prayer, meditation, positive mindset, laugh, have fun, practice gratitude, read a good book, do some deep breathing. That will also all things that will help you with the stress. Also, another thing that you want to do in order to control the stress and control the cortisol is that when you wake up in the morning, make sure to take some sun early in the morning, anywhere between 7 in the morning to 9 in the morning. You want to take at least 10 to 15 minutes of sun. One, because that's going to help you with your circadian rhythm and with the releasing of your cortisol and melatonin, and also because that's going to help you make some vitamin D. Now, of course, the darker your skin, the longer you have to be out there in the sun if you want to make more vitamin D, or you can supplement for it. And the last thing that you can do is target eating and target supplementing, eating things and adding things to your foods that will help you with the insulin sensitivity, so that we can open those pathways and get the sugar where it belongs. Okay, so some of the things that you can be using is like turmeric. It's anti-inflammatory, anti-cancer, help you with insulin resistance. Ginger, not only going to help you with the inflammation inside your digestive system, but it's also going to help you with the insulin resistant. ACV, which is apple cider vinegar. And one thing that I do every morning is that first thing in the morning, I take a glass of warm water with lemon, apple cider vinegar, and turmeric. And you know that to activate the turmeric, you have to put a little bit of black pepper. And I take that first thing in the morning. What's that going to do? It's going to help me be better when it comes to better insulin sensitivity. And it's going to help increase the acidity in my stomach so that I can break down the food properly and get all the nutrients that I need from the food. You also want to consume some omega-3, vitamin D, magnesium. Do you know that magnesium is used in more than 300 metabolic processes in the body, in the cells? So you need magnesium. The best magnesium that you want to take is magnesium glycinate. Berberine is a supplement that comes from a plant that works exactly like metformin in your body, but without the side effects. Plus, besides lowering the sugar, increasing the sensitivity, making sure that your pancreas is making insulin. Berberine also activate your MPK, which means it's a protein that helps you burn fat. Okay, then Ceylon cinnamon also help you with glucose sensitivity, and also chromium, alpha-lipoic acid, and many more. So you want to consume, but the good thing is that when you have done all the tests that I mentioned before, then if you If you're doing all the tests, then you know how to target what you want to eat and what kind of supplement you want to consume, because you don't need everything. You just need whatever it is that your body needs. Okay? The thing is that our medical system, they treat everybody the same. Everybody's diabetic or pre-diabetic. That means I have insulin resistant. Everybody get metformin, but you probably got insulin resistant because of your cortisol. Maybe you got insulin resistant because of inflammation. Maybe you got insulin resistant because of your stress. Maybe you have insulin resistant because your thyroid is not working right, but they care less. Why? Because they give you the protocol that they have. They already calculated how long it will be that you're going to be there, and how soon you're going to get side effects and complications, stuff like that. That is going to make them, you know what, mula, money. They not really care about your body. The only person that take care of us is God. That's why He made this the temple of the Holy Spirit. And because this is the temple of the Holy Spirit, we have to take care of it. Why we need to take care of it? So that we have enough time to fulfill the purpose that God has for us. And if we're not healthy, we cannot fulfill that purpose that God has for our body. So it's important for us to make sure that we know that we have, that if we are suffering insulin resistant, and the earlier you attack it, the earlier you figure out what's going on, and the earlier that you change your lifestyle, your food, and give it the nutrients that you need, the best it's going to be for you, and the least complication, least diseases and chronic diseases you will suffer. Okay? So thank you so much. Remember that the doctor is responsible for your sick care, but you is responsible for your health care. Okay? Because we're the only one that create health. They're only taking care of sick. Okay? So take care. Thank you so much.